All right, time to fix the door, the A-pillar, and the top. Let's get started. All right, so we did all the fun stuff, all the rocking and rolling. Now it's time to problem solve here. I put some C-clamps on the back window, so our steel going around the back side is good. I noticed that those original corners are really messed up, so that was throwing me off, but then I figured that out. That's no problem, we'll fix that. We just got to get the top in place, welded on, then I'll be able to do all the sheet metal work. But we need a problem solve right now, and we need to get these A-pillars tipped back. Our door's in the way, so we can't tip it back. And we need to find somewhere here to cut this, because as soon as this tilts back, this is going to have to tilt forward a little bit too. So we never want to do too much in one area. We want to do a little bit all over the place, so nothing looks too exotic in one area. So when I want to tilt a door, you don't cut it off in a square, because if I cut it off in a square and I started to tilt it back, I'd have a big gap here. You can always cut it off in a pie, and as you tilt it back, you just cut off the difference. So we'll be cutting the A-pillar off here in this crevice, then out like 1/8 of an inch into the sheet metal. We'll be cutting out here in the sheet metal so I can hammer and dolly this. We cut in the crevice here, so when I tilt this, all I have to do is cut the difference out and weld it back up. So I'm not actually doing anything right here other than trying to grind that character line back into my weld, which is not a big deal. I mean, it sucks. it's not like, you know, zip it, it's good to go. So, I mean, they'll be working to do there. But what I'm saying is, this is going to tilt, this is going to tilt, then this is all going to tilt without me having to make any big pieces anywhere. I'll just be able to cut some stuff, then I'll have to cut the bracing out of the back of the door and hammer and dolly this curvature back into something that looks nice, because I'm going to cut it like this and I'm going to tilt it and weld up the difference, but then our character lines are going to be a little smushed, so I'll cut out the back side of the door after I get them welded together, and I'll hammer and dolly them to look a little bit nicer. So I'll be welding everything with silicon bronze so it's softer, and I'll be able to maneuver it around. So without further ado here, let's get some of these Brainiac ideas to start working for me. So I want to cut this at a 45-degree angle, only because that's what I like to do, and it doesn't really have anything to do with anything else, just because I can recreate it on both sides easily. So do a 45 to that edge there. You don't always get it the first time. I didn't like that drawing there. So going off the character line 45. So I'm going off of this line, I'm fortifying from that. And I can use my little flexible ruler here to give me a straight line up and around our character line here. So these Truler rulers here, I've used them a lot and I've shown them to you guys a lot. But man, you can use them a lot more than just measurements. It's nice to have a straight edge that can flex. But the only thing you gotta make sure is you straight edge both sides of your line, because it can flex in an odd direction. There, that's what I like. So I'm gonna cut that out just like that. Easier said than done. There's a lot of odd bracing on the back side. All right, so cutting this cowl is kind of the easy part, really. It's not a big deal. It's in a nice area to where, what I mean is, everything that you have to cut is really easy to work after the fact. So we'll just go some random distance away from the window, just to get us enough out into the sheet metal that I can hammer and dolly it. That's all I care about. There's a bracket here you got to cut out on the inside. Just remember to weld that back up after the fact. Then we're just going to come out. No like certain area really. This is really straightforward. Just give yourself enough room to hold a dolly and hammer it to get this lip right. Then we're going to cut in the crevice. So when we tilt it back, we're just pushing more steel in the crevice and cutting out the difference. Really straightforward, actually. So we just want everything to be even. That's more important. So my cut line is going to be really even all the way around. My weld line is going to be really even all the way around. That's what we're going for, even. All right, so let me show you what's going on in my brain here. We have the front post of the door here, and you can see how the structure is. I didn't cut out the end structure. I left that, and I cut it right at that structure there, and how it meets up to the door, and how it gets welded on stock here. I'm gonna weld it all back on stock after I lean it back. We have this really nice little line here where that's welded together from factory. I'm gonna cut it on that line, so I can take these arc pieces on the outside that makes the window reveal look good. I'll take those off and save them so I don't have to cut those up. And I'll get my door to lean back. However, this has to lean back to match the A-pillar. So this right here is what's important in this whole situation. Once I get this matching the A-pillar and the door gap correct, then I can correct this arch after the fact. I can have this whole car welded and structurally sound together and have none of the window reveals done. I'll do that at the very end where everything is in its final resting point. But why I like to cut it here is not just because of these cuts are easy. Now that I have this off of here, this is going to be really easy to take that off and save my window reveals. But when I tilt this back, all I'm going to do is cut back some of this original door structure, and that's going to give me the tilt back, which I can't do it right now because I haven't cut any of these pieces out yet, but I can tilt it back and I can weld this back on stock like how it came from factory. Of course, as all of us hot rodders know, there'll be extra welds in here that they didn't have in factory, so technically it'll be more welded than what it originally was. But this is going to give us our nice slant, and it's going to keep us having good structure. It's cut in a good spot, so when I slant it, I'll be cutting the difference out of this. So I'm not really going to be cutting much out of it to get the slant. And how I said, I'm going to cut this whole character line out. So I'm going to zip it here. I'm going to zip it all the way around and come back here. And I'll have these pieces unadulterated in my hand, able to do whatever I want with those pieces. Some guys will pie cut them and turn them. Some guys will make a buck and hammer forge these in a buck. And some guys will bead roll this character line. Now this is going to be 3 pieces. I've bead rolled it before. 1, 2, and 3. It's really complicated one to do on the bead roller. You have to weld all that together. So everyone's different in different styles. And you know, you could do it with $50,000 with equipment, or you could do it, you know, with a nice cutoff wheel, some patience, and some imagination, and you can get it done too, either way, and it'll still look good. It just depends on what kind of fabricator you are. So this is how I like to do the front pillar of the door. I think it's easy, one of the easier ways to do it, a little bit less complicated. And I hope when I explain it to you guys that way, you kind of see what I'm talking about and it's not overcomplicated. It's really very simple. Okay, I wanted to show you the cut too before I moved on. So we cut it right on the character line, the very edge. And whatever I tilt back and whatever I cut away is not going to cut into this character line at all. It's going to stay exactly how it was. And you can see this is a pretty clean cut, really. And, you know, I didn't cut this out. That was stock. I think that probably rusted out at some point in time. But, I mean, this is a really straight cut because these 2 pieces aren't together. You know, that's its own thing. So, we're chopping the car, but we're also not really, you know, destroying anything in the process. It's going to be just as good as it was stock. Okay, I think I kind of explained this a little bit. So I'm going to be cutting in the groove, and I'm going to be pulling the whole thing back, and whatever I don't use is going to go inside the groove, and I'm going to cut the difference out and weld it back up right here in the character line. Of course, it sucks grinding the weld out and making the character line look good, but I think this is the best way to do it. Then I'm just going to cut it across straight as possible here. Then I'm gonna go up a hair on the inside, because on the inside of this, it's a whole C channel. So I have to cut through this whole C channel that goes all the way across on the inside. Probably can't see it, but you guys know what I mean. There's structure on this side of it, not just a skin on the outside. So I wanna cut it here because I wanna get the C channel before we get up into this structure here that's holding the cowl and the whole car together. So I wanna cut out above the structure that's hanging on to the cowl and this here. So ignore the chromey welds. This is a torch weld. I welded it with a torch, really hot, so it looks ugly, but it's very strong. But yes, I want all this to stay connected to the car. I don't want to cut that out. I'm cutting it in these areas, so I am cutting a round structure and just cutting pretty shapes out on the car. And of course, I think I said it already, I am cutting up here, then straight from here. So this gives me an area to work the steel. If I cut it in this rounded part here, this is gonna round up. This is gonna come back, then there'll be a big gap right there. So if I do it out here, I can hammer and dolly it and add a strip into it. Because this is gonna be leaning back, I will have a gap here. So now check out all the freedom we have to tilt this back and forward. So really go aggressive with it, which we don't have to. And all we have to do is cut off the difference here in the back. So we'll be pie cutting it this way. That's why I cut it in the character line. So we can tuck whatever we don't use, we'll tuck into that character line. Right now, obviously I haven't cut anything away, so it's not going to tuck. But as you can see, it will tilt back. This isn't going to be too far off. We can hammer and dolly it, because really, on this one, the roof has already been extended somewhere in the 70s, and we're only taking that much more out of it. So with the roof already been extended, I don't think the drop backward is going to be too crazy. So we'll just see how it goes. But now that this is loose and moving around, let's set the roof back on it, and we'll just see how much turn it's actually going to need to line up with the pillars on the roof. So yeah, let's do that. All right, so now we got it back together. You can see that I have it clamped on my mark line. All the extra steel from the top is way down in here still. I haven't cut any of that off yet. That'll be one of the last major things I do. Even though I cut an inch out all the way around, that can't guarantee that the top is sitting completely level all the way around. My cut wasn't perfect here. This is kind of how it happens sometimes. That's not that big of a gap, so what I'm gonna do is just cut some of the inside out until that becomes a better gap. This is just part of the process. Not everything is perfect the first go around. Then you can see how that's a little bit wider here, a little bit narrow there, so we'll probably have to cut it here. Cut it here. Then you can see how this is going one angle, this is going a completely different angle now. So we'll have to cut it here. We'll have to widen the bottom, bring in the top just a tad, not much. Like a cut line, that's how much we'll bring it in on the top. And our gap isn't anything crazy yet, so that's nice. So we should be able to sheet that, and that's not a problem. We're lining up pretty good over here. Just got to move it. It moved on me when I was trying to C-clamp everything in. It just shifted over. So I think it's looking good. Rear window looks nice. I like that we took it out underneath the window instead of cutting the window and making it a mail slot. This is, I don't like having a really small back window, but so far so good. All right, so now this car is talking to us. This is what I wanted it to tell me. So we have movement here to tilt this. Obviously I have to cut it on the inside to get this to come back down. But as we tilt it to line it up, you can see, hopefully you can see in the camera, I don't know what you guys are looking at. I have this line here, then the top is going at a different angle. So we're also gonna have to pie cut it somewhere around here. It always sucks, but it's what has to be done. Because when you pie cut this and you open it up, you have to change a big area of this character line to get it to be right. So the door is actually the easy part, getting the door to match all this. That ain't a problem. But once you pie cut this, usually right around here somewhere, this arc is gonna, and this arc is gonna go, and it's gonna look like ass. So you have to cut the whole arc out, remake the arc. I'm probably gonna hammer and dolly a new arc. And yeah, that's probably one of the few areas that sucks. This sucks, then the rear window sucks a little bit. But, you know, it is what it is. And it tells me what the next thing that needs to happen. And I think I'm gonna have to cut it here a little bit too, because I look at both sides and it's a little bit out here. On the 34, this goes out a little bit wider, just a tad. If you look at the front windshield, you can see it on a stock one, then it gets a little bit wider at the top. So it's not uncommon to cut it here and make the difference even. So we don't have to do too much on either one. So we don't have to lean just the bottom too much. We don't have to lean just the top too much, and in and out, vice versa. We don't want one part to do all of the work for us. If we massage each piece a little bit to get it to all line up, that's what looks the best in my opinion. So, yeah, this is why 34s take so long to chop. I could chop a 51 Chevrolet in a weekend for the most part, except for finish welding. But chopping a 34, that's not gonna happen in a weekend. All right, guys, that's gonna do us for part 2. I'm just gonna break these up so no video is super long, or I don't have to skim over all the little details, because if one of you guys have a 34 or something similar, 30s car in general, it's nice to know how someone else did it. All the stuff that I've done on here is just experience between other cars and this car, and me watching other people chop this car. So nothing here I really invented. Everything is kind of just a correlation or combination of everything that I've seen and everything that I've done. So, you know, I don't take credit for every single type of cut that I'm doing. But I don't want to skim over anything. I want you guys to see it all. Some of you guys are actually interested in doing this yourself, I'm sure. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully these aren't running too long for you. So see you next time.
You're getting fucked up now. You should have never done that. I hope your slicks work.
He said he's in the wrong gear. He already got excuses.